Guys, we are jumping right into it. We are talking top French wine words you absolutely need to know. First, we start with the absolute holy grail of French wine, and it is the word terroir. There is no translation for this baby. Terroir is basically everything that influences the wine's character. It's the sense of place the French love to philosophize about. Philosophize, is that a word? Terroir is basically everything that influences the wine's character. It's the soil, it is the climate where wine grows, the slope of the vineyard. There are some winemakers who really like to go very deep, and they include a human being as a part of terroir, because the winemaker, he takes care of all those things, and he has a really big influence on how the terroir expresses itself. It's like this unique fingerprint that every wine carries, and it's impossible to replicate. That's exactly what makes every wine so unique, if done right. That's why every winemaker pays so much attention on how to express the terroir. Okay, next one is clos. It's written with S in the end, but the French pronounce it without the S, so clos. This basically means enclosed vineyard. Just like a vineyard surrounded by a wall. Now, enclosed vineyards is a kind of system that was developed by the monks, mostly in Burgundy. Nowadays, even the wall no longer exists. The vineyards are still called clos. What the monks intended to do with that was to enclose the part of the vineyard and to kind of mark that it's special, that it's this specific territory or vineyard is very different from what is happening, 2-3 meters further away or apart from it. So an example of vineyards like Clos Rougeard, a beautiful wine from the Loire Valley. Oh my goodness, so delicious. Or Clos Rougeard, the biggest enclosed vineyard of Burgundy. It's about 50 plus hectares. And it's also Grand Cru, which leads me to the next word. Cru, literally translated, thank God this one has a translation. This means growth, but not like a growth as in, development, but a classified vineyard. It can also be a region or kind of a village, like it is in Champagne. All right, now let's talk about sparkling part. So we have blanc de blanc and blanc de noir. So basically you're taking white grapes, like in Champagne it would be Chardonnay, in Burgundy it would be Aligoté and Chardonnay, in the Loire it would probably be Chenin Blanc, and you make white wine out of it. Very easy, blanc de blanc, white out of white. These ones are usually quite crisp, very elegant, and they have this lovely, sharp, almost edge. Again, this is just a total generalization. It will differ from producer to producer, but if you're talking about blanc de blanc like Champagne, this is where it's mostly used. Then we're talking really like a crisp style, like very nice, like kind of crunchy acidity, not too ripe, but like really, gives you this nice like a crunch. Right, next, blanc de noir is the opposite of blanc de blanc. This is making white wine out of red grapes. Yes, you can do it. If you didn't know that, welcome to the wine world. Everything is possible here. How can you do it if you just limit or absolutely have no contact with the skin? Because almost all of the grapes have white juice inside of them. So if you avoid any contact with the skin, basically you can make white wine with red grapes anytime. And that's what they do in Champagne. They use Pinot Noir and Meunier to do Blanc de Noir. These wines usually have much more body. They will have much more richness to them. They will have this more structure, more like backbone to them. And it's funny because usually it never happens with white wines that you have like, red fruits when you smell and swirl the glass. But with the Blanc de Noir champagnes, I often have, I swear, a touch of raspberry, strawberry, kind of the red fruits, and the color would be slightly more intense. Next up, barrique. Barrique is the name that for sure you've heard. For sure. This is a term which is very often used in Bordeaux. It is a 225-liter oak barrel, small oak vessel where the wine would be aged. What would it give to our wine? It will influence the character of wine a lot. because you will have a very small barrel, thus very low liquid to oak ratio. And that means that the wine will be filled with flavors from that small oak barrel, like all kinds of spices like vanilla, nutmeg, toast, maybe some cloves as well. The type of barrique will also matter. There could be a barrique made of French wood, or there could be barrique made of American wood. And as American wood barriques, they will usually give you like this very distinct dill and coconut flavor. And on top of that, if it is a red wine, you will have a very nice, what we call a polymerization of tannins. That means that the longer the wine is aged in these oak barrels, there will be a little bit of oxygen penetrating into the barrel, and it will polymerize the tannins. It will make them a little bit softer, much more pleasant, especially if we're talking about grape varieties that have naturally a lot of tannins. Okay, next up, cuvée. Okay, this has very diverse meanings. Most of the time it is used to designate a blend of different grape varieties. Like in Bordeaux, a cuvée would be mostly of these, three top grapes like Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Cabernet Franc. In Champagne, it would mean the very first pressed juice that is coming out after you harvested the grapes. You put them all together, and then you will press. And this initial pressed juice, the very first juice that will come out from that press, is called cuvée and is considered to be, top quality. Why? Because this first pressed juice is going to be much cleaner, much more pure. Do you know what I mean? And then the second press will be, slightly different. There's a big chance that you will extract a bit more bitterness out of it, which you don't really need. And this is not really desirable in our, bubbly, fresh champagnes. And then in Burgundy, I remember some winemakers use the word cuvée in Burgundy to designate their very special wine, their most special wine. For instance, in Chateau de Beaumont, they would call Simone as a cuvée Simone, although it was only Pinot Noir, but it was the most exclusive, it was the most prestigious wine that an estate made, so they would call it, or we would call it a cuvée. Okay, next one, Surly. This is very often used in the Loire Valley to label muscadet wine. Excellent with oysters, by the way. The wine is going to be basically aged for some time, for a couple of months, on the dead yeast cells left over from the fermentation. Okay, don't get freaked. It's actually really good for the wine, and it's going to give the wine this very interesting aromatic profile and also enhance the wine's texture. You're going to have this very nice, like a bready, yeasty flavors, and also very nice, like a creamy, kind of like a creme fraiche or yogurty texture. Delicious. Next up, vieilles vignes. I'm sure you know that. Vieilles vignes basically translated, thank God this one has a translation too, from French old vines. There are no specific requirements for the vines to be labeled vieilles vignes or old vines. However, the norm is 35 or actually 30 plus years. The vines can be labeled old vines. The old vines usually means that there are fewer berries. They're kind of exhausted, with age. You get, just like human, you get a little more tired, less productive. But you also gain much more wisdom, just like the humans do, and that means that you will produce higher quality of grapes. They will have fewer berries, so you have fewer yields, but much more concentrated berries. So really nice complexity. And most of the time, old vines, irrespective of grape variety, they will have thicker skins, so they will have a bit more, so you can extract a little bit more flavor out of them. All right, not last. The next one is côte, like côte du Rhône. It means slope, or you can also say hillside. There are numerous reasons why the wines would grow on the hillside, and not just because they like to enjoy the beautiful view. The slope offers, first of all, beautiful drainage, and that would of course prevent waterlogging, which is lovely. We want to keep those roots fresh and aerated, and the vineyard itself as well. We want to avoid too much moisture. This is not good for us. And also, what happens in the slope, most of the time you have less fertile soil, so it will be quite shallow, poorer and shallow. So that means that the root penetration will be much easier, and the deeper a roots penetrate, the better system they will develop, and then that would also mean that a little bit more concentration for the vines, and more efficient uptake of nutrients. and minerals. Slopes or côte, especially in the colder vintages, especially in the cooler climate, they will allow for much better sun interception. But nowadays, actually, the word côte is just used to designate not the most prestigious vineyards in a way. So if you're thinking Côte du Rhône, this is really basically the grapes grown all over the Rhône Valley. So it's not usually a thing to look for, I would say. Okay, 2 more left. Next one is crémant. You need to remember this one. If you're like especially if you're like my parents who call everything bubbly a champagne. So crémant is basically a sparkling wine which is made exactly like champagne is made outside of the designated champagne area or region. Crémants are usually cheaper and they're usually followed by the region where they come from. So there would be crémant de Bourgogne, there would be crémant de Loire, crémant d'Alsace, which is actually amazing price quality combo. But to be honest, the quality is usually it's lower. It's much lower than the quality of champagne. And last but not least, millésime. This is basically a French word for year or vintage on the bottle. Most of the wines are going to be made in the same vintage where the grapes were harvested, so all grapes from one vintage. However, in Champagne, there's a huge exception. Most of Champagnes are going to be made as a cuvée or as a mixture of different vintages. Don't ask why. There are some exceptional vintages, but especially now it's getting much more regular occurrence that all of the grapes for Champagne come from 1 year, and then you're going to put that year on the label. Obviously, you can actually come up to a store or to sommelier and say, what kind of millésime Champagne do you have? And he will instantly know, oh, okay, this one is looking for a Champagne which comes from one specific vintage, not several. And there you have it. That's it. Very, short and hopefully informative. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to put this thumbs up, especially if you watched all the way to the end. I would really appreciate it. See you